Vinita Srinandan. She is the chairperson of Seawoods Estate Limited. It's a NRI complex in Navi Mumbai. Vinita, can you come on, please? And I would request you, basically, you are the public voice of what is happening today. And just, you have also been involved in sort of legally fighting certain cases on this issue. So just share your experiences. And I think you have a presentation, Vinita?
No, no presentation. I'll just be speaking about my experience.
Right. Yeah. Please, on to you.
Thank you to Down to Earth for giving me this opportunity, and thanks to the other panels who have spoken really very well, and I agree with them and their views. And we are here today to discuss the urban menace caused due to stray dogs, monkeys, and pigeons. It's criminal that man's best friend has been reduced to being calling a menace. And what is common among these three categories is feeding by humans. I'd like to share with you how and why this has happened. I'm here today because I'm an animal lover, and my role model, renowned classical dancer Rukmini Devi Arundale, she had drafted the Prevention of Cruelty Towards Animals Act in 1960. This act primarily focuses on animal welfare. It doesn't confer rights on animals, but it ensures their protection by preventing unnecessary pain and suffering. It already recognizes the suffering of homeless animals and mandates their human euthanasia or sheltering. As per PCA, the Animal Welfare Board was to be constituted to support this act and its implementation. However, you'll be surprised to know how the Animal Welfare Board, by forming the ABC rules, has contradicted its own parent act. The PCA Act says Animal Welfare Board should create shelters, but ABC rules state that the animals should live on the streets. This is evident in the fact that they are asking people to feed dogs everywhere, on the roads, on footpaths, the gardens, inside gated premises. When the dogs are fed, they become territorial about a place, and often they attack several people who pass by that territory. Funnily, they have advised that feeders should fix a time and feed during that time. The territorial nature of dogs is not time-bound. If a dog forms a territory where he gets food in the night, he is possessive about that place even during the day. The only activity that had kept stray dogs busy was searching for food. The feeders have taken away this activity from them by providing food. Now the dogs get ready-made food, and since they have to expend all the energy they have, they do as per their basic nature, that is chase and attack moving vehicles, early morning joggers, late night workers, children, etc. For stray dogs, chasing and hunting, rather for all dogs, chasing and hunting is a fun game. They don't chase people to eat them. So the statement that hungry dogs will bite is not true. Hungry dogs will search for food. If this was true, pet dogs would never bite. Pet dogs are kept on leash when they are taken out. They are well fed and they are most often sterilized and vaccinated. So sterilization and vaccination has no bearing on the dog biting. So this is one important point that we have to think. Assuming that hungry dogs will bite, it's absolutely wrong. Also, feeding by humans makes the dog healthier and more successful in mating, thereby increasing the population. When a dog has to search for food, they don't have the energy to hunt for their opposite gender to mate. When they wake up, they have to again move to find the next meal. But today they are being fed, and this has made them reproduce at an alarming rate. AWBI themselves have said availability of edible waste causes increase in population. Then why are they asking citizens to feed dogs? The dog doesn't know the difference between food lying in the dustbin and food given by a person. So the effect of edible waste is same as the food given by the feeder. If at all the dog has to be fed, it should only be in shelters where they are taken care of, not in public places or private places. I have experienced the horrible effects of stray dog feeding in a gated society. A few ladies in my society have been feeding stray dogs in the car parking of their buildings, which has flats owned by many other residents too. So the dogs remain in the car parking. This has resulted in several unprovoked attacks and bites by these dogs on the residents. We created 2 wonderful green areas just outside the society to feed and maintain stray dogs there. Our aim was that once the dog gets used to feeding in these demarcated areas, they can remain there, and that would work like a shelter for them, something like a small mini shelter. But the feeders put a writ petition in the High Court asking for 7 feeding areas inside the society. Since there was no law which allowed this, none of their prayers were accepted in the High Court as well as the Supreme Court. By then, Animal Welfare Board made a new set of rules called ABC 2023, which is worse than ABC 2001. In ABC 2023, they have forced the responsibility of stray dogs on citizens, particularly on those living in communities. They created a new entity called community dogs and said the whole community owns these dogs and feeders have no responsibility. This is the most absurd thing that could have happened. Calling stray dogs as community dogs also does not change the fact that they are homeless and still suffer from accidents, diseases, and lack of shelter. And who is responsible if the dog bites? Are residents of the community responsible if they are called community dog owners? Or is the local municipal corporation responsible? Or is AWBI responsible? It turns out that nobody is responsible. Stray dogs that have even killed a child inside a gated society and taken out its intestine cruelly continue to be kept and fed inside the same society. This is the reality of India and ABC rules. Article 21 is already suspended for us on public roads and footpaths because they are all occupied by stray dogs now. Now they have legalized the maintenance of stray dogs in communities. Stray dog feeding in my community has resulted in more than 75 unprovoked attacks in approximately 1.5 years. There exists a huge nexus of feeders, NGOs, and AWBI itself. To give an example, the local municipal corporation had caught about 6 stray dogs from our society after receiving complaints of stray dog bites and kept them for observation in a demarcated area. The dog feeders released the dogs within 24 hours, and we were given a fake report from an NGO called In Defense of Animals, which said that they had observed the dogs for 7 days and that the dogs were healthy and fit to be released. Here, not only have they lied, but it is ridiculous that biting dogs are to be released on the basis of their health. They were never caught in the first place for being unhealthy. What will you observe when you confine a dog? Whom do you expect it to bite when there is nobody around in that confinement? This is the kind of fraud being done by the guidelines of AWBI and by NGOs to support the maintenance of stray dogs inside a gated society. Feeders and NGOs also harass and threaten citizens and residents by filing fake cases against them. This is the harassment that we face in this country. Harassment of living in fear of stray dog attacks and bites, harassment by feeders via fake cases, harassment by interference of NGOs, and harassment by AWBI themselves, who has sent us threatening letters asking us to allow stray dogs feeding inside the society. I personally have about 20 sections of IPC filed against me, including apparently for kidnapping, molesting, assaulting feeders. This is why today we are experiencing man-dog conflict at its peak. People see only dogs as a menace. Both people and dogs suffer, and the only beneficiaries are NGOs that get funds for ABC surgeries and shelters, which itself has no bearing on dog attacks. Whole generation of children is growing up scared and traumatized by stray dogs thanks to the ABC rules. I will end by requesting genuine dog lovers to speak up and get the ABC rules repealed and not allow peoples and dogs to suffer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I can see in the question answer box there were a few questions from community projects and gated societies, which were relevant for everything that you said just now. Can I get to the questions? And there is one question by Gargi Vats. She wants to ask Dr. Abhi about any environmental factors also that cause spread, like the map that you have shown. That's what she's referring to. The map, she says, shows more cases in Uttarakhand and Chhattisgarh. So is there a specific reason for these high cases in the two states? Dr. Vanna?
I would take most of these data with a bit of pinch of salt, mainly because there's massive underreporting from many states. There's also correlation with poor health of services availability in those places. So in most cases, humans who have been exposed to rabid dogs are unable to obtain post-exposure prophylaxis in time. So there's probably no correlation between the number of dog bites and the number of rabies cases reported in a particular state or particular region. Like I showed you, Pune has a lot of rabid dogs, but very few rabies cases. Most of the rabies cases that get reported to Pune come from the surrounding villages. Now, rabies is a problem in rural areas where the healthcare services are poorer. People don't have access to post-exposure prophylaxis, the vaccinations. So it's not just the vaccinations. You need to also get something called rabies immunoglobulin, which is given to you the first time you get bitten. Also, rabies injections have to be taken multiple times, and people, especially from poor rural communities, don't have time to go again and again to go and get these, travel to the nearest city to get these injections. There's also a lot of traditional medicine used in many of these places, which obviously does not help with prevention of rabies. So there's a whole bunch of factors here. I wouldn't necessarily say that there are some environmental issues here that are reflected on that map. Rather, it could be a problem of access to access to post-exposure prophylaxis.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Bhanak. We don't really have very much time left with us, but can I ask Richard or any of the down-to-earth team members? And I can see Sunita Narayan is also on the screen with us. Hi. And if any of you have anything to say or any questions for our reviewer panelists, please go ahead. Richard? Sunita ji, आप mute पे हैं. You can unmute yourself.
Richard, would you like to go before me and then I can...
No, I don't have any questions. The story answers most of the questions that we raised. And so over to you, Sunita ji.
So, I have to say with some disappointment, Shuparno, that I have been really hurt by the nature of the discourse that I have seen on this issue that we have raised. We talk about tolerance, we talk about the need for a dialogue, we talk about the need for finding solutions. And it is not about what is the problem and what needs to be done, but it is about the kind of way that it is like an attack of on anyone who dares to ask a question. Now, in CSE's experience, this is exactly what has happened to us when we raised the issue of pesticides. We were told we have a numerous number of SLAP cases against us today. SLAP is strategic lawsuits against public participation, because we raised the issue of pesticides and the impact of pesticides on our bodies, on our environment. Obviously, the pesticide manufacturers find that a very inconvenient conversation, and the only way that they can deal with it is to attack the messenger. And that's really what we have seen, and we are continuing to deal with it. Just last week, we have got another legal notice because we have dared to write a story on pollution in a particular industrial area in a state in India. Now, nobody is contesting the fact that there is pollution there. The legal notice is, how dare you write about this? And there is a threat that we will be taken to court, and there are court cases against us. Now, when we did this story, and we did this as down to earth to write about what was clearly an issue which is in our midst. It is not something that we have imagined. It is an issue that is very much there. Rajat will remember a few years ago, we had done a similar story looking at wildlife-human conflicts, okay, which is also a very serious issue where you're getting huge impacts on farmers and on others because of wildlife going into the fields. And obviously the issue there also is, what do we do? Now, there is no doubt there is an issue about habitat shrinking. There is an issue about the growth of animals, lack of space for them, and about encroachment of humans on their habitats. But it is also an issue that it is adding to conflict, and it is adding to problems for farmers. It is adding to problems of tensions between animals and people. And we basically believe that tension, that conflict is not good, that we need to resolve it. Now, to resolve it, we need to discuss it. To discuss it, we need to have the courage. And I'm really talking about courage because, quite honestly, after this rabid, absolutely, and I'm sorry, it's a bad word to use in this context, but the rabid debate that I have seen, which is imputing every motive on us, which is talking about killing human beings, which is talking about, in the worst language possible. I don't use this language. I'm a person who believes that social media is to be used very carefully and to be used so that we can actually have a discussion. And I do not subscribe. That is why I refuse to engage with anybody who uses this kind of language and this kind of tone, this kind of tenor. But I have to just use this forum to say how deeply disappointed I am that this is the nature of the discussion that this has brought in. One of the acquisitions against us in social media that I saw was, why don't you have people speaking in the webinar who are so-called pro-dogs, pro-monkeys, pro-pigeons, as if any one of us are against them, okay? Firstly, if you read the story, every effort has been made to put different point of views there. We approached everybody for them to come on to the webinar. If we do not get people to accept to be on the webinar, that is not something that should force us to cancel events. We are now getting to a point where in our own community, we will start saying, why should we write about this? Kyun jhanjat lena yaar? Chodo. But I can tell you, as somebody who's worked, who has some experience in this field of environment, whether you can abuse me, you can denigrate me, you can say whatever you want about us, I can say that with some experience, I'm humbly putting it across to all the people who say that they are the ones who are against us, because I refuse to be called not a dog lover. I refuse to be called an animal hater, okay? I would only say to them humbly that if you don't look at this issue in the face and you are not prepared to talk about it, it will only get worse. And the consequences of this will only get much worse for the animals that you are today trying to protect. So let us be very clear about this. This is a discussion that we need to have. We need it as a society. And if we talk about intolerance in the pesticide industry or in other sectors of our society, I am shocked to see the intolerance that I have seen, which is within what I consider my own community. I am sad to say this, that my own community today has become an intolerant community where we cannot even discuss which we think are inconvenient issues. It is an inconvenient issue. It is a tough issue. There are no rights, there are no wrongs. But if we don't discuss it, we will not be able to have a dialogue. And frankly, the nature of the absolutely virulent, disgusting comments that I have seen, I'm not going to engage with them. I'm only going to wish all those people well and just say to them that I am only very sad to see that this is what they will deteriorate to. We will not join them by deteriorating to their level. I hope, Shuparno, that is not saying too much.
No, I think you are quite right. And I do think that we have not joined issue with them. Our panelists also have been fairly, proactive and sort of maintain the line and length, so to speak. We have crossed the time span by almost 13 to 14 minutes. So I would like to now, say thank you. And Richard, do you have to add something to this?
I think the conclusion was made by Sunita ji. Nevertheless, it shows how big this is an issue.
The issue itself is, yeah.
It took a magazine like Down to Earth to put it on the cover and to get this speaker, the experts on black and white, and the kind of debate we are having it. Yes, I think it's not an very expected debate and all these things, but it is a serious issue. As Sunita ji pointed out, I think if you don't discuss and all these things, and you don't have it, it's ultimately will go against the species that we are defending. So that's all, and thank you very much for joining us and giving your things really enlightened on these issues. Not only just doing the story,
and Richard, I think we should continue to have courage to keep saying issues, but making sure, as you did in the magazine, that all points of view are reflected, which is always our effort, because if you do not have every point of view there, you can never have a dialogue. And that is what we very strongly believe in, not dissent, but dialogue. But I'm really sad that on the webinar, we were not able to have many of the faces that we would like to have had, maybe next time. But definitely we will continue however difficult it is. I have to say, there have been points in this last few days in the kind of absolute trash that I have seen on social media for me to end up saying, let's forget such issues, just let's forget them. But we won't. Just as we will not stop writing about pesticides and pollution, we will continue to raise issues and try and bring a dialogue and a discussion so that we can move it forward. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Rajat. Thank you, Himanshu. And of course, thank you, Abhi and Firyaz, Sindhu, and Vinita and Shuparno for putting this together. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All the speakers. Really, really nice of you to have. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you.